All right, friends. Welcome back again to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment. Our YouTube channel is dedicated to all things Bannerlord related, and welcome to WARSAILS. And we are going to do some War on the Sails today. We are going to continue our Naval Tactics series, and we are going to have fun today. This episode is going to be part tutorial and also part fun as we begin to experiment with the thunderous rams. We also have a fire catapult. We're outnumbered here. The enemy has more ships, but we do have our flagship, right? We gave one of our ships a big thunderous ram, a gigantic wooden dildo at the front of our ship, and we're going to do some serious penetration in this episode. We're going to use the winds, and we're going to use tactics here as we have 3 different boats over here on the left. I'm going to use them as infantry slash shock troops slash distraction, right? We want the enemy to attack and or moor up, right? Entangle, ensnare, grapple those boats, because that'll fixate them in place as well, and then we will fixate our ram on their asses, right? We are going to do some gnarly ramming here, and the key to it is speed and approach. That's going to be covered extensively here. Now strap yourself in. I'm not going to do heavy editing here. This is going to be a 15 or 20 minute battle, because we're not going to fight a lot, right? Our ship itself doesn't have great troops. What we're going to do is use our oarsmen and smash the enemy to pieces. Now, I'm actually intending to go towards the sun. It might look weird. We are actually using the wind to gain speed, and now we're going to turn into the wind and raise our sails. It's going to be very important for players that want to do well at warfare in Bannerlord and WARSAILS to understand the wind gauge at the bottom. That little tiny thing that's moving around on there like the hand of a clock at 7 degrees there. When it's in the red, the wind is coming at you, and if you have your sails up, it actually slows your boat down. Now you want to basically start to understand it and how to use it. What I'm doing here is purposefully rowing into the wind, because we want to come down the wind with our ram to hit the enemy, right? That'll speed us up. So that means once we start turning left here, I'll be able to unfurl our sails. If you've never heard of that term, furl them means basically where they are right now. Roll them up. You see how we're turning in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. We're in the light green. What you really want to do is wait until you're in the medium green or the bright green, and then your sails will really catch the most amount of wind. Now they built a beautiful system here as somebody on the ballista, the fire ballista, shoots around off against the enemy. The system is beautifully intuitive, and physics, right, definitely apply. If you get hit by a ship or something like that, it dramatically alters your momentum, etc. Now, what we're trying to do here is essentially line up boats, and I'm going to try to tell you what I'm targeting beforehand, but right now with so many targets, I'm just trying to hit shit, right? We've got our ram out in front. We'll be sure to give you guys some nice angles here of our penetrative attacks. We're going really fast, and this boat is in trouble, right? It's absolutely broadsided and 1 for 1, right? The first boat we hit sunk, and all this scum kazate to the bottom of the ocean. They get trampled by our boat. It is sick. Barrels and debris and carcasses of the enemy float along the water here. This WARSAILS component of naval warfare is absolutely sexual in nature. I mean, never mind the innuendo there. That was glorious. Just rammed the shit out of that kazate boat, sunk it, and then the troops are thrown into the water where they act like entities, and they're not perfect little human beings in there, but they're swimming to other boats. They're getting clobbered by debris. They're getting shot by archers. It's just amazing, the effects, right? So we're going to definitely experience that over and over here, because I have our other boats engaging, and the death spam does not look good. Quite frankly, we're sacrificing these other troops, both for strategy, right? We're going to keep our flagship alive here, but also, and I should mention, I've got this other boat following us, right? I actually have 2 boats following me. One boat, we're just telling them to stop once in a while so that they shoot the enemy. They're archer-heavy cogs that I'm essentially trying to use a little bit and micromanage. It's a bit of an experiment. I mean, WARSAILS for most of us at this stage is an experiment. So what we're doing now is circling around. And again, our sails are up because we were in the red. As soon as we start to hit the green, boom, the sails come down. It takes a second or two for the wind to catch it and watch it reverse, right? All of a sudden the wind hits it. And it really is astounding how well they built this. I think even people who are on the ocean would say they've done an almost perfect job of simulating the wind, although I'd love to hear from verified mariners. And it's time for more sex, right? Only let's add some flaming shit. You do this by clicking the right mouse button on the PC. I'm sure there'll be a button for console. And we could drill and set the enemy ships on fire before we have another anal probe here. This guy, it's a big ship, so we're probably not going to sink it. But boy, are we going to hit it hard again on the broadside. I'll give you the frontal view. It says, excellent ram. It goes through the bottom of the ship. Troops are cast all over the place. Sometimes they can get thrown off of the boat. And again, another good example of using the wind to ram. Now, there's a critical thing to understand. You're basically going to want to do loops with your ship as you're ramming. In order to get, like a porn star to film the most possible episodes, you're going to want to do this circular motion. And the key is to understand that wind gauge, right? I'm circling around, and I want to hit this bright green patch, right? You can see the little dial there is coming to about 9 o'clock on the clock. Now we're going the fastest. So one of the best ways to actually move your ship is to catch the wind, gather up speed, and then turn into the wind and raise your sails. And what that does is your ship has all this speed, but suddenly it doesn't have the drag of the sails. And so even though you're going against the wind, you will still go quickly. I am fortunate enough to have a bit of study on everything from maritime navigation from the Coast Guard to I'm extensive student of the weather, right? And we actually want to raise our sails here. That was an accident. If your sails are down into the wind, in other words, when that little little wind dial or whatever at the lower right corner there is in that red area, your ship will almost come to a stop. Now it depends on the weather factors, right? You can get a situation like this where it's very windy. And it can blow your boat backwards, right? Now, some of these other boats are pursuing us as our little archer cogs follow me. And this is a point I'll mention here as we circle around for another penetrative attack. Your archer ships, you want to keep them moving. So there's two ways to do it. One way is to say engage, and they will sort of try to skirmish. So far, I have found this a better method. I just have them follow me, and the enemy troops will follow us, just like our first episode, where we're doing some misdirection. Those big ships probably can't catch our little ships, right? They might be able to ram them if they get the right angle, but as long as we keep those guys sort of one step ahead of the enemy, they sort of gave up their chase, right? And that's perfect, right? I'm glad they gave up and they can watch us destroy it. There's a couple little cogs right in front of us. So we're turning. Those two big ships are sort of confused. They're not quite sure what to do. The enemy has counter siege too. We're getting hit by siege weapons again. You see our wind dial is coming to that brightest green patch there, and you want to hold it there if possible and look at this boat. It's just inviting us to impale it, right? A little double penetration action here, and they're turning, and that makes it ineffective, right? That's actually a good tactic to avoid getting rammed, is to turn your front, right? If you get broadsided, ships were designed to handle a little bit of impact towards the front, just not as much towards the rear. We have enough speed that we actually sunk another boat, right? So we get a little double penetration, triple penetration here. Suddenly this episode is rated X. We can fire our catapult into the sinking ship, and now we're going to circle. We're going to actually circle, I think we'll circle the other way and show you the difficulty in this. You notice we're moving towards the red. So there's two reasons this is hard. First, we're right next to the other enemy ships, and so we're vulnerable right now. But also it's going to take us a long time to circle this way. In other words, there are times where it's appropriate to circle counterclockwise, from a top-down view. In other words, turning to your left the whole circle. But this is not one of them. It's going to take a long time for us to circle here, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to gain enough distance here fast enough to really be impactful. The other enemy ships are starting to approach us. They're chasing us. This is my point, right? You don't want to circle this way under these wind conditions. We will be able to catch the wind here, but to what effect, right? All the boats they're kind of on our side. They're to our port. we'll do a little naval terminology. I am a firefighter. I actually am a civilian who works for the government, right? Works for the military. So I am familiar with Navy ships, Coast Guard ships. And you can see we totally whiffed here, right? The enemy was able to keep so close to us that I picked up sail and speed here, but I'm going to have to actually spend another 45 seconds getting away from the enemy to turn. So you want to turn the wind gauge where once you turn it into that red, you have this speed, and then you furl the flags, furl your sails, and drive into the wind with your oarsmen. It's going to be a dance, and it's going to be something that we all have to experiment and learn, just like riding a unicycle or something like that. Now you see those archers there? That is the one control I can do. I can say stop. And what that does is it kind of leaves them out there firing away, right? Those guys will shoot. They'll get some kills, although their momentum kept pushing them. Now we'll try this little reverse spin here. And by the way, the best way to turn quickly, and it's not quick with a big ship like this, is to go back and then turn the other, obviously the oars on the side you want to go to. If you're trying to go forward and turn, you turn in a much broader, slower arc. All right, give you a little fire pot view here. Fire pots are hard to fire at a distance, but also in heavy seas. We're bobbing all over the place. If you get seasick easily, this DLC is going to be challenging for you. But I think, since this is going to be another 10 minutes still as we lit that boat on fire, we'll talk a little bit more about that. I have another big frigate here lined up in my sights. And we're going to broadside, I think, their captain's mast, right? There's all kinds of rubble and debris floating around. It is sick. And it says a weak ram, but we still did 5,000 damage. Their troops are sent flying. Now their shit's on fire. It's absolutely sexual. It's so great. Now here's the only bad part, right? This is going to be a little bit like a menage a trois. It's amazing, and they're rare, right? I've only had 17 menage a trois in my whole life. Now, I've never had one, right? A lot of people have never had sex with many women at the same time. Those of you who have, congratulations. It's probably a wonderful thing, right? At least society, social media, and whatnot has sort of suggested to us that it's a great thing. In any case, the point here with this bizarre analogy is that WARSAILS and ship combat is awesome, but it's going to be pretty rare. Now, I think we have enough speed here. We just caught the fastest wind, and we're going to be able to broadside either this little ship or the big one. Again, though, they're turning, so let's try to hit the big ship. Yeah, we got you, bitches. Bam! Excellent ram. It says 18,000 damage. Ships, incidentally, they do have a hit point system. You can actually look at the little icons on the ship when you hold the Alt button. The more red that's in their little circle, the more health they have. I wish it was slightly more obvious, but essentially you could see where there is sort of like a half moon filling all the way to the top, or not, right? You could see that ship with 66 has half of their health left. So big ships have 60, 70,000 hit points, so you might have to ram them 3 or 4 times. Now, a couple things has happened here. We have damaged a lot of oars with these ramming attempts, and that has another effect that a lot of players are not really thinking about or maybe don't know about. The oars can be destroyed, right? In fact, the original Drummond was designed in the 4th century, 5th century, something like that, a very long time ago, as an oar destroyer, right? It was designed to ride up on the edges of boats, enemy ships, and break their oars. The rams are actually sort of historically inaccurate, unless we're just making up when Bannerlord is played. Bannerlord is supposedly set in the year 1085. Well, rams were completely ineffectual by then. Most of the historic evidence suggests that after the 7th century, rams were no longer even used on ships because ships were designed so strong that rams just didn't have the effect to break the boats, right? They started building boats in a much stronger manner. Never mind all the historical stuff, but we'll continue to try to keep these episodes lively again because we're now 15 minutes into this episode and we still have some good fighting to do. The enemy's winning, right? You can see the power bar up top. They're winning decisively, but we still have our flagship, we still have our ram, and there's a couple, 3 other boats still helping us. So hopefully we can at least make this close. Now this is suboptimal. You can't really do a lot of damage to the front, although It looks like we hit it dead on, and they might have been damaged before. Holy shit, they're like getting thrown up. These guys are standing on the ram. This is rad. Now, it's not real accurate probably, but it looks rad, right? We've got our troops falling into the water too. There's going to be some parts that are a little bit unrealistic, a little janky, right? You would not be holding on to the giant dildo for dear life. You'd be flung off instantly. It'd be slippery and whatnot, but that was still cool. Sunk another boat. And again, you see all the debris in the water. There's a number of touches with WARSAILS that are just, it's a 12 out of 10, right? We're not supposed to score this, but this episode is releasing so close to launch. I'm not going to give it like an actual rating other than what I just said, right? It is fantastic. And I guess if they want to yell at me for that, so be it. All right. And again, you can see our angle here. We're going to have to turn really hard, and I'm not sure I can pull it off. Maybe, okay. We're going to be able to do it. You can actually have your rowers hold back, right? And provide basically counter force. Yeah, see, that's not going to work very well. Ineffective ram. We might be able to hit this one pretty good. Good ram, it says, right? So there's 3 or 4 different types of rams as our ram sticks up into their boat, does damage. Now, one of the things you want to do here is there's all kinds of carcasses on their boat getting pushed into the ocean. You want to turn your boat in this kind of situation because you don't want to get stuck here, right? One of the keys to our whole strategy is to keep moving. So I'm actually trying to get away from this ship, right? We're gonna cease our penetration of that ship here and circle around for another porn episode. We still got a good looking crew. I'm looking around our crew here, and the number of different visuals are fantastic. I haven't done it yet, but you can actually set up a ram and then run to the front of the ship and like stand there while you ram a ship and watch it up close. You can throw javelins in there. Hell, you can grab the fire ballista and drill troops in the water with the ballista after you ram them. I mean, it is it's so fun. It should be criminal. All right. Again, you see what we're doing. Our sails are starting to flag here a little bit. We're turning into the red. We'll talk about the sails too here because it's going to be another 5 or 10 minutes. But the sails act differently. There's 2 types of sails on this boat. Some boats have 1 sail. Some boats have 2 sails. And we will talk about the differences here. I think we'll do it right now. You have the ability to raise the sails one at a time. However, you lower the sails with 1 click, right? You hit the X, they both come down. The 2 different sail types is a square sail, and it should hit the wind right about now. Kaboom! There for speed instantly, right? It causes a huge surge in speed. And this is probably not going to work. I'm trying to gain speed here and then turn left. This is probably not going to work because you see what's happening. I have to now turn into the wind. We're going to lose a lot of our speed. I'm experimenting a little bit here. If we raise the sails... I mean, we're going to get a little bit of a ram. Let's see what this does. We're going right over their ship. We like throttled their ship into the ocean. God, the effects are so great. You have this just big ram, this beautiful ram head on the front of your boat. Let's see if we can get away from this boat. This boat's trying to board us. We got to keep moving here. Paddle, boys. You can, incidentally, of course, a lot of guys know this already, you have 3 types of paddling as well. You can tell your guys, I want everybody paddling, right? The maximum number of dudes paddling. And of course, if you have casualties or your rams, your paddles are busted, right? If some of them are broken, they can't keep paddling. Or you can say, I want half the guys to paddle, like reduced power, or nobody to paddle, which is what you would do right before you jumped onto a ship. All right, circle round again here. Let me just finish that point on the sails before this next approach. It's going to take 30, 45 seconds. So you have a square sail. That's for speed. It, however, must have good wind direction for that square sail to really be highly effective. If the wind is even slightly against you, the square sail is very ineffective, right? Basically, it's a detriment. The lateen sail towards the front works better with a wide variety. The lateen sail is the one that's a triangle. It works better with a wide variety of wind direction. Basically, one is a lot more versatile, the other one has a lot more power. Some ships like this have both. And so you have the option of using that lateen sail where the wind is not very helpful to you. Let's see how this does. And I've lost track, right? Just like a porn star, I've lost track of how many ships we have penetrated here. We're just blasting them all over the place. We've had several money shots. It's been orgasmic. 22. They still have more troops than us, but we're very slowly making ground on them here. Right? It's been a slow and steady destruction of their fleet. Now we're going to make another loop here. Now, so we've talked about oars. We've talked about sails. We've talked about the oars can be destroyed. Right? We'll talk about rams. I think, and I don't know this yet, right? We're going to have a full sailing guide eventually that's a lot more detailed. Your sail quality, your oar quality, your ram quality, I think comes from upgraded shipyards, right? I've gone to shipyards in the campaign we're playing, the Nord campaign, and it says these upgrades are not available. Can't get a ram yet, right? And of course, you can't get rams on little tiny ships. You have to have big ships. That said, we have big Viking ships, so we are going to get rams, and hopefully this is going to help me practice for the campaign and you guys as well. Now I'm trying to use Latin sail here upwind, and you can see how it's kind of blowing sideways, and I think it's probably even slowing us down. Now, so last time, just to reiterate that, square sail, speed, Latin sail, like we're using it right now, versatile. It should catch the wind. Boom, it just caught it. Now you want to lower the square sail. The square sail obviously does the best right now when it hits this big green patch. Now we've got a problem here, or at least a problem is developing. Square sail should turn, catch the wind. It really does act like real life. The ships are starting to chase us, right? Because we don't have any troops left, so we're going to have to start getting creative here. We're going to have to try to tie them up on each other. We're going to have to try a few sort of flank attacks where you pretend like you're bypassing a boat and then turn hard and try to hit the rear, right? Try to broadside them. It looks like it's going to work, right? Once you get used to turning a boat, and of course we have the wind and another excellent ram, and we just sunk a huge ship right into the water. All their troops go floundering, and there was a lot of troops on that ship. The sails disappear under the ocean. Another just, award-winning penetrative attack right there, and their troops are in the water swimming. I can actually see them swimming back there. They will try to swim to nearby ships and said, in fact, that number 78 on that little ship, I think that's including those troops trying to sail there. Now, if they can't fit on the ship, they drown, they die, right? If there's not enough ships that are afloat at this stage, the enemy's running out of ships. Their troops are going to start to drown. They can, I think, get on allied ships, although I'm not sure of that. That might be prohibitive just by by maybe the game mechanics. All right, swing around for another loop here. But we're starting to close the gap, right? Our ramming here is starting to change the outcome of this battle. Seems like we're still outnumbered, right? They have like 150 troops, give or take. But there's a couple things that you're not really seeing. First, a lot of their troops are definitely injured. You can be injured by ships hitting your boat. A lot of those guys have been shot to pieces. Some of them have been fighting our troops on the other boat. Meanwhile, we've probably lost like 5 troops from our ship, right? We're in really good shape. Now, there is a dynamic that is definitely going to occur from this stage on. We may not be able to land more than 1 or 2 successful rams because all of their ships now are turning directly towards us, right? So there's 2 problems with that. First, it's almost impossible to flank, right? Because they're coming at us, we're going to be lucky if we even hit their stern. Second, they're going to be vigorously trying to grapple our boat, get alongside it, and then get on. Now, to mitigate that, how are we going to deal with that? First, we're going to try a few more rams. I don't want to waste your time, but if the rams are unsuccessful, and it's going to be difficult because we're coming head on. I already mentioned basically ramming the front of the boat does very minimal damage. If it's unsuccessful, what we want to do is sort of fight these ships where they're all in a line, sort of next to each other, not surrounding us, right? We do not want to get boarded from 2 or 3 different directions. And we didn't kill anybody that swing, right? So we're in a little bit of a stalemate here, and for the sake of brevity, I think what we'll do here is 1 or 2 more attempts just to see if we can't pull off or learn another function, another way to pull this off. I mean, you could get really creative and try to get them to hit their boats into each other, right? Sort of get them to trip over each other before landing a savage ram. Unfortunately, we're turning into the red here, so we're going to lose our winds. You can actually see the square sail. It started to get blown the other direction, right? And Tail Worlds has done a great job with the wind dynamic. Again, just to reiterate that square sails really need the wind in your favor. Lateen sails, the triangle or the oblong, the kind of odd-shaped sails, do much better in a different degree of wind. Right? One is essentially more versatile than the other. There's no question it's preferable to have one of each, because then you have the ability to use only the Lateen sail if the winds are not favorable. And if they are favorable, then you have the monster square sail. Look at it catch the wind. But again, we have an angle of approach here problem. Right? I'm going to have to swing to the left to hit anybody, and when we do that, we're going to lose the wind. This is, by the way, what happens if you approach from the downwind side, right? We really can't get speed to attack the ships. And it could be my imagination, but the swells seem to be coming at us also. I think that's what's occurring. Let's see if this low-speed ram does anything. It's so slow, in fact, they were able to avoid us, and we're probably moving 3, 4, 5 miles an hour. So it's a problem, right? At this stage, we're kind of down to archers, crossbow, and an infantry battle. So maybe a little bit of finesse maneuvering at this stage, but we're sort of out of tricks. Now, thanks for all of the tactics. It's amazing how many tacticians come by the channel. That was one of the intents. I was trying to harbor an environment where really intelligent, experienced tacticians would come on board. And incredibly, we have people who are bringing on actual military tactics from various organizations throughout the world, right? They're talking about, you should try this naval strategy, or you should do this that we actively do right now. Now, people aren't out there ramming with wooden ships and stuff like that, right? But there's all kinds of enthusiasts and tacticians that come to the channel. And just like our field combat getting better, we should be able to get a lot better at ship combat because of this collective brain power. On the field combat side, I actually started the channel with a huge advantage. I knew a history teacher, history professor from a local college who had a PA, an assistant who basically we started the channel together. Now, he didn't narrate, he didn't play, but he would brainstorm with me. We would meet up like twice a week and we would talk about different tactics. And he's like, wow, you should try to recreate Kanai, or you should try to recreate this battle. And then he's like, I don't think this will work because of the game mechanics. Of course, he played the game. He just wasn't as comfortable playing the game. In any case, right, we had an advantage because of this additional brain power. He's too busy these days. He's actually a professor from a college. He's asked me to keep anonymous, and I'll respect that request. But, the collective wisdom certainly helps here, right? So if you guys know tactics that'll help on the channel, please share it, right? Because, of course, I'm just getting my feet wet, literally, pun intended, and we want to bring as much to the table here as we possibly can. This will be our second episode. I hope to make 4, 5, 6 episodes on ship tactics. As we come around again, we've got the wind, but I'm not sure, again, they're all facing us, right? So you don't broadside very well here, and you've got to be dead center to do any impact. Maybe we can angle here and dishevel. Then we got bumped. It says weak ram. Now, it still did 6,000, so a weak ram does 6,000. Just for point of reference, again, the big ships have 50 to 70,000 hit points, and probably more with perks, and the little ships can have, well, there's medium ships too, but the little ships can have 15 or 20,000 hit points. So if I was willing to sit here for another hour, I might be able to ram all these ships to death. If you can't tell already, the AI does, I would say, a mediocre job at best at using the winds. I'm not surprised, right? Generally speaking, artificial intelligence in most video games is insufficient compared to the human brain. And so we are going to be able to abuse the AI. They're not really using coordinated attacks. Frankly, they look like sitting ducks. But I also don't want this episode to go forever. So maybe we'll try one more attack here before we just fight it out. It's really close. And I think as long as we can fight these ships somewhat in detail, in other words, fight them 1 or 2 at a time instead of letting all 4 just board, I think we have a good shot to win here. Now that boat's turned. That boat's turned, but I don't have strong enough wind to hit it. Again, we could try this tactic. So you turn towards the wind, towards the right, and then at the last second here, once our ship is moving fast, you turn towards the left. Unfortunately, now they're turning. We're going to ram their front here. A frontal ram. Ineffective, it says, right? Even though we hit them dead center, and it trucked a lot of their units. You got to love the effect, right? Their troops fall down. I personally think that shipboard fighting in Bannerlord is like a 12 out of 10. It's incredible. It is unbelievably fun. It puts you right in the action, right? You can, anytime you want, you can take this perspective, the first-person perspective. You can swim. You can climb those nets if you get knocked into the water. Imagine multiplayer. It's going to be unbelievably fun, right? It might take a while for Tail Worlds to get that going, but please do multiplayer. Allow us, 8 guys on both sides to control a boat. It'd be epic. It'd be amazing, right? Slamming into each other and coordinating attacks. But, like I mentioned earlier, that ship hit our oars. Like I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, ship fighting is going to be somewhat rare. So in a way, it'll be like that menage a trois, right? Whether you have 1 or 17, like studs like me, you want to really enjoy them, right? I would encourage you to make a save game before a big naval battle. I actually haven't had any big naval battles in our current campaign. It's only 10 hours old or 8 hours old, and eventually there should be more. But it's part of it's the mechanism, and the easiest way to think about it is this: there's a lot of land, right? The game has a lot of land. The other problem is you don't see the enemy navy until they're close to them, right? So unless you got a scouting ship that says, "Hey, there's a fleet here," you're going to have a really hard time just happening on a fleet in the first place. Fleets are unusual, they're rare, and it's the ocean's, this haystack, and you're trying to find a needle. So in order to mitigate that too, just in case, a 1% chance as we fight out a mindless siege here. In fact, I got one shot by a Consguard. We'll just watch the end of this battle. Just in case Tail Worlds is listening, I've got a couple suggestions for Tail Worlds to make shipboard battles more common, because I can guarantee you other players are going to want them to be more common. Rather than just doing custom battle menus like this, which is fun, they're going to want it to impact their campaign. Here's the first suggestion. Make the blockades of cities by a ship fleet devastating to the city. Unrealistically devastating. In other words, if say you blockade Poros, right, the imperial city of Poros, have the city start to starve into like a rebellious state within a week. Now, it's not historically accurate, because unless you block the land as well, they would still get access to food, they would have a stockpile, etc., etc. It would take weeks to really blockade a city. I know a lot of actual situations where there are blockades, but what that would do is it would create a regular occurrence for ship battles. They could then program the AI to essentially prioritize blockading, and in turn, you would have to unblockade them. These are all the ships I sunk. It's so cool. I think we sunk 5 ships, or 4, and heavily damaged another. The other one. The other tip is just to have scouting ships. It could be unrealistic as well. It could just say, hey, a ship has been spotted here, and they could highlight an area on the map, or a broad area. There looks like there's a ship over here. And that is because it is glorious, with the lighting effect, with the waves crashing over your ship, with the carnage of combat and rams. We want to do this more. So, of course, if you want to do this more, if you want to watch more from our channel, now's the time to subscribe. Please hit that like button, friends, and I will see you next time.